there's this doubt that always starts when you begin training. You don't move quickly, you hesitate, you hold back, and you almost give yourself an excuse as to why it didn't go the way it was supposed to, because I wasn't really trying my best. I didn't want to go all in. And then all of a sudden there's a shift, and you see a kid go, you know what, how bad could it be? I'm gonna go for it. And then they get it and they're like, oh wow, I'm more than I thought I was. And from there, you just see this growth that is unmatched.
Welcome to the Elev8 podcast. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. And whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you're in the right place. My guest this episode is the founder of the Edge of Greatness project. He is a coach and an author. His latest book, Master of the Sea, a little story about possibilities. It's linked up here on Amazon. Go get it now. He's also the host of the Edge of Greatness podcast. Welcome to the Elev8 podcast, Charles Schultz. Charles, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Excited to have you on. You got a new book out. Wanted to hear about it from the source directly. I'd love to hear about it. Master of the Sea. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, so I was invited to speak at a conference in Tennessee a year ago, and I told a story about how I believe we all live in a sea of possibilities. We have the ability to decide anywhere we want to go, but the difference between those who figure out how to get there and those who don't are the ones who learn how to master the sea. They learn how to read the compass. They know how to set their sails. They know how to row the boat. They have the ability to handle the adversity that happens out of the sea and face the storms. If they get twisted and off course, they redirect. And those little lessons that we learn, more or less being lost at sea, leads us to eventually finding our true compass and our true direction, and then we land where we were meant to be. And that's kind of the idea behind the story. It's a young man who thinks he's got it all figured out. He's a freshman in high school who had a good year, and his mom's like, yeah, dude, you got a long way to go, and sends him to live with his uncle who owns a boat and does like evening sailing cruises in Hawaii, and along the way he teaches him all of these lessons that the sea has taught him over time, and it gives him this new perspective on what it means to really pursue something. How do we go about getting to where I really want to go, and what's my final destination going to look like?
Do you spend time on the water yourself?
A little bit, not a ton. I love the water though. My uncle had a boat, and every time we got a chance to go on it, I was in heaven. If I ever had the opportunity to retire on a boat on the water, I would take that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Sounds lovely to me too, no doubt. Just curious. I grew up in Iowa and Colorado, so not a lot of big boat spots for me either. So, but the Edge of Greatness, your podcast that you have, I love just the theme of the Edge of Greatness. Where can we find that Edge of Greatness?
So I've got a couple different spots. I'm up on Spotify and Apple, but if you're looking for just kind of go back and look through all the stuff that I'm doing, the edgeofgreatnessproject.com it's got everything. It's all right there.
And then when you dive into the Edge of Greatness, man, what is that edge? What are we looking for? Where do we find it?
So the biggest thing is when I think of greatness, I think of it as a skill. It's a journey to getting better. And just like any skill, no matter how bad you are or how good you are, you can always get better. So technically, no matter who you are and no matter where you are in the journey, you're always on the edge if you're trying to improve. Yeah. The goal is always be trying to improve, never be satisfied with where you're at, and looking for what can I get out of this next opportunity. And I think that's what I took from the Edge of Greatness, is that I've always felt like I was close. But it's weird because I've always felt like I was close, which means like, why haven't I gotten there yet? And then it started to click to me that I'm not going to get there. And that's okay, because I'm still better today than I was yesterday. Yeah. And I'm way better than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's the journey that I want to be on, is constant improvement, figuring things out, and then going from there.
I love it. And you locally, I know you coach, you coach, you speak, right? All kinds of things going on with the Edge of Greatness life. But the Alchemy Sports, tell us a little bit about that and kind of your daily, some of the stuff you do there.
Yeah. So the Alchemy Sports Performance, that started after college. I started getting into the training world. I needed something to challenge me after sports was over and after school was over. And it was a great opportunity because I got to work in a team again. I got to help people get better. It was my first in the door to coaching in a sense. I was
Yeah.
coaching people on how to be healthier. And then it's evolved because I started getting more into the sports world. And then now Alchemy Sports is about a lot of young athletes, a lot of college athletes. I still do some adult fitness stuff, but I'm
Cool.
geared more towards helping the next generation of me don't make the same mistakes I did.
Yeah, I love it. Me too. That's why I think I vibe and wanted to have you on the podcast. I think spending time with young athletes, I think especially when you have kind of performance strength background, um, I find in my experience that often sometimes it is the coaches in that performance realm that are better naturally at maybe sometimes coaching up the mental side. They're
Yeah.
trying to get the maximum effort out. They're trying to yield, maximum results in high stress environments. Um, what is it that you love about being able to kind of teach the mental skills and some of the stuff that's in the book, through the process
Yeah.
of your other work?
Well, to feed off of that, I think a lot of times in the sports performance world, in the training world, we don't have to teach the tactics of the game. So we have the ability to
Sure.
lean into some of
Mhm.
those more physically challenging, mentally challenging, emotionally challenging situations. But for me, is the one of my favorite things is when I get to see a kid realize just how strong they are.
Mm.
There's this doubt that always starts when you begin training. You don't move quickly, you hesitate, you hold back, and you almost give yourself an excuse as to why it didn't go the way it was supposed to, because I wasn't really trying my best. I didn't want to go all in. And then all of a sudden there's a shift,
Mm.
and you see a kid go, you know what, how bad could it be? I'm gonna go for it. And then they get it and they're like, oh wow,
Yeah,
I'm more than I thought I was. And from there, you just see this growth that is unmatched
yeah,
in any other point in their life. Like
yeah,
that stage, especially in high school, if you connect with a kid and you get them to really explore the challenges of the unknown, and they're willing to go into those places where they're not sure if they'll succeed, they can become something completely different in a short period of time.
no
And
doubt.
it's a special thing.
No doubt. I know in your journey of coaching, there's a coach in your past that had a big impact on you, and
Yeah.
I've heard you speak about him a little bit, and I just wanted to dig in, like, what, in its simplest form, what did that coach do so well that to create that impact on you?
One of the things that Coach Gussler did, he was my baseball coach in high school, is he had the ability to talk to everyone, but feel like you're getting talked to by individually. It was an incredible thing. He connected with every single player on his team and got the absolute most out of everybody. And there was this ability of his to instill belief that no matter what was asked of you, he's asking because he knows you can do it. And so even if you don't think that you're capable, you feel safe to go and try, and you feel comfortable to give it your all, because he wouldn't have asked you if he didn't think you were capable. And that
Yeah,
was it was a special feeling. And he was also extremely demanding, extremely focused, and it was an awesome place to be and grow up, because I needed that. I needed somebody to say, look, if you want to be great at stuff, I'm going to hold you to the standards of excellence. This is what it looks like.
yeah,
There are no cutting corners, there are no easy way outs, there are no off days. You have to be relentless in your approach and what you do. And he did it with making it fun. It was a really cool balance for me, because there were some days that were really hard. There were some stuff, there were some things that really sucked. But I don't remember looking back at any of those things and going, man, I wish I didn't like that. I didn't want to do that again. I
yeah,
would do it all over again. Every single thing that I ever went through, if he was leading me, I'd do it.
yeah. I love it. What you talked a little bit, about kind of the relationships and that aha moment when kids are finding their strength. Is there something in the like mental skills leadership realm that gets you excited when you're working with kids or other coaches when they have an aha
Uh,
moment around something else?
so for me, it's interesting because every kid is unique and different in what they retain and what they take from your coaching. Um, I have
Totally.
some kids come back and they appreciate the way I led, and then I have some kids come back and they appreciate what I taught, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have some kids come back and say I wouldn't have worked as hard without your push. And so it's really a unique thing, and that's what I think I love about coaching so much is that in order to be a good coach, you have to be a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be a good coach, you have to be adaptable to different kids and different personalities and different styles. And so for me, I really just I love all of the connecting pieces. For me, it's putting together the X's and O's of the mind
Yeah.
and making it make sense to a kid who doesn't really understand why he has to face adversity in his life
Mm.
or why he has to fail
Yeah.
or why she has to deal with all of these other things that aren't related to the task she wants because that is going to help this eventually and connecting those dots and making it all make sense. I think that's the part I enjoy the most is it's not any one thing with leadership. It's not any one thing um with the mental side, although I think they all interact together.
Sure.
I guess actually, you know what? If I were to say one thing, there's really a when you see a kid lead another kid
Mm.
in a positive way,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than that because so many kids want to think leadership is yelling at your teammate because you're in charge and they're below you. But when you see a kid actually lead somebody, take them, put their arm around them and be like, hey, man, this is how we do things. We need you to step up here. We need you to do it like this. Do you got any questions? How can I help?
Yeah.
And I saw a kid do that and I was like, oh, yeah, that dude's special. That
Yeah.
dude's going to be so much
Right.
more than an athlete. And
For sure.
it's rare, but it's special when it happens.
Yeah. I think that is I think as a coach, you're like, yeah, I did something, right? And we have had a little
Yeah.
piece to do with that. I think
Yeah.
that's great. And I think there's, opportunities is for us as coaches. I think one, when we see that, we've got to catch them and recognize it, right?
Yes.
I think that
Yeah.
often sometimes coaches are so focused on other things. These moments that you just spoke of kind of, don't get recognized or rewarded, but that's what the coach wants to be repeated,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think so. One of the things I can't remember, I jotted this down doing some notes, but I can't remember, it was from Twitter on your website. But it said, "Greatness is a war of attrition." I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Talk
Yeah.
a little bit about greatness being a war of attrition. I know you talked about a little bit about kind of that continuous
Yeah.
striving.
Yeah. Because it's a skill and because you're never actually there, the person who can face the daily grind, who can show up every day and improve, who can use the compound effect to make progress and then have high standards will eventually win that game. And that but the problem is that we live in a world and a society that wants immediate results, immediate gratification, and you won't find that with this journey.
All right.
You'll have small wins, you'll have good days, but one good day followed by 5 bad days doesn't get you anywhere.
Mm.
You need a cumulative small daily wins and so that's the war. You have to show up every day. There's no off days. There's always just how can I get just a little bit better today? And it doesn't have to be drastic. Like one of the things that I really love to talk about is when I approach things and I think of like the compound effect,
Mm-hmm.
I set my targets so low and so small that it's harder for me to miss a day of something
Yeah.
than it is to not do it. Like
Yeah.
I when I write, I set my target at 100 words. I write when I get in the flow 100 words a minute. There's no reason or any day ever for me to miss that target.
Yeah.
I think this morning I wrote 2,300 words
It's awesome.
because I got into the flow, but I
Yeah.
sat down with the target of, all right, let's get 100 words on the page.
And I think, do you see this in the gym? I definitely observe this more sometimes with older people getting back into fitness, that they get audacious and courageous before they get consistent.
Yeah.
And I think whether you're a young athlete or you got goals and you're, whatever they are, getting consistent is what's going to get you to that audacious thing that
Yeah.
might be there. But if you stare at the audacious big goal, it gets intimidating, right? And
Yeah.
then we don't put in the work. And I think there's a good story I always share a lot that I think it's Jerry Seinfeld when he just got the show deal with NBC. And this other like struggling comic was opening up for him, and Jerry was still doing stand up. And this guy did not become a comic, but he used this advice he got from Jerry later in life. And he said, I'm opening up for Jerry Seinfeld. I want to know what makes you so great? What did you do? And so pulled him aside and said, what makes you a great comic? And he said, write one joke every day. And he goes, when I do that, I mark an X on a calendar. Some days I write 100 jokes. Some days I write one. Sometimes the one's great. Sometimes the 100 stink, and
Right.
It was just that. And then it followed up with that, I did it, mark it off. But I think it's that same respect. You can't write 2,000 words unless you've already written 100. It's just not mathematically possible. But we start to overshoot the little consistency thing. So I love that.
That's one of the big things is if I were to shoot for 1,000 words a day, there'd be a day where I'm like, man, I don't have time.
Yeah.
And then you miss that day.
Yep.
But like I said, I can write 100 words in 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Like it doesn't take me long. So I just have to sit down and give myself that 100. And if I stop after that, fine. But odds are I'm going to do at least 500.
Right.
Like that's probably my bare minimum. That's typically what, if I'm having a bad day, I'll stop at 500 because it's not moving well. I'm not flowing. It doesn't make sense. I'm not connecting with what I'm writing. And I go, all right, well, that's good for today. But if you looked at Jerry Seinfeld's calendar, I guarantee you saw 365 X's.
Yeah.
Because it's one, and for that person going to the gym, instead of going 5 days a week and trying to work out for an hour every day, just put your workout clothes on every day.
Yep.
You may only go to the gym twice, but you got ready 5, 6, 7 times, and you're getting in the habit of going to the gym. So whether you go or not, get ready to go. That's the step one. Start.
Yeah, I was thinking, put on the shoes and step out the door, right?
Yeah,
pack the bag.
Yeah. If you turn around and go back in, that's cool. But you just step out the door.
And I think it's a good balance there because I love, the way you talked about your writing is, even if it's not flowing or feeling whatever, that you can step away with not being over judgmental of yourself, that you still accomplished minimal task standard, of what you're looking for. But I think sometimes that's the other part is people start to kind of judge themselves a bit too harshly and then back away from their goals or consistency.
Yeah. I actually talked about that this weekend. I was speaking at an event in Knoxville, and I said, one of the things that we fail to do is define what our words are. We don't define what success is. Yeah. So when I was speaking that day, I had 3 tasks I was going to accomplish that day. The first one, I was going to get up in the morning, I was going to write. And I did that. Second one, I was going to speak in front of a group. That was already set in stone. That's an easy win. The third one was I was going to hang out with the people from the conference. 2 of those 3 were going to happen, whether I did a good job or a bad job or not, but that's a successful day. Yeah. So I won that day because I defined what success was that day. If you go through your life and you say, okay, I'm going to do 3 things every day, and this is me defining what success is, and you only do those 3 things, you're having successful days. Then you feel good about what you're doing. You feel good about the accomplishments. But if you try to go and say, oh man, I've got a list of 28 things I got to get done, and you only get 6 done. Well, you beat my 3, but you feel bad.
Right.
So again, I think keeping things small and consistent creates a life of success. Yeah. We tend to want to do all of these things at once. Don't get me wrong. I have probably 95 things I'd like to do. Sure. If we were to sit down and talk about all the things that I would love to get started and run with, we'd be talking for another hour just about things that I haven't started that I think, man, that'd be cool. Let's do that. Yeah, that'd be cool. For sure. But if I try to do them all at once, I'm going to fail, and then I'm going to get frustrated, and then I'm going to quit.
Yeah. What advice kind of to piggyback that on, prioritizing things? Where do athletes sometimes maybe get things wrong? When I think when you can simplify and prioritize, it does make it a little bit more achievable. But often we complicate it.
I think athletes in particular put too much weight in the performance results. Yeah. That's in my opinion they look at the wrong thing. They're putting too much in stuff you don't have control over. Like, did I score 20 points?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that day you didn't have a chance to shoot that many times. Maybe, or maybe you had some good opportunities and they just didn't fall your way. Right. Certain things we can't control. In baseball, that's one of my primary sports that I work with. Is you can't control if you get a hit. So if you say my goal today is go 3 for 4, and you hit 4 seeds and they make 3 diving plays and you go 1 for 4, but your goal was to go 3 for 4, and you're looking at it from the perspective of the result instead of I hit the ball hard 4 times.
Yeah.
That's a successful day. You hit the ball hard 4 times. Hitting is hard, and you hit it hard 4 times. But so what? They took some hits away. I guarantee next week you're going to get one that you nub into the outfield that is the worst hit you've ever had in your life, and you're going to take that win too, aren't you?
Yeah.
We put stock in the wrong things, and I think that becomes a problem with a lot of stuff, not just sports, but we start to do it with life. We start to do it with business. Oh man, I need to land this deal. Well, you don't get to control what they say. All you can do is make your pitch.
Right.
If I make the best pitch possible and he says no, did I really lose? No, I did what I was supposed to. It's just not the right time, not the right place, not the right fit, whatever it is. But that's not the result that I'm looking for. I'm looking for fine-tuning my delivery, making sure I present it the way it's supposed to. And over time, if I do it consistent and I do it well, the business will happen, but we get frustrated by things that we can't control.
For sure. One of the things I always like to ask, if you could jump into a time machine, go back and see 16-year-old you, what advice would you tell 16-year-old self?
I think if I were to get to go back to 16-year-old me, the most important thing that I would tell myself is trust the compound effect and what it's doing for your life, and don't get distracted by the fun, shiny things. When I was in college, I went to our freshman year and I was driven, focused, and every day I did more work than everybody else. I was so dialed in. I was on extra work on the tee, extra work in the cage, extra work in the weight room, extra work on the field. But then, after my freshman year, I had a really good year. And I started to go, you know what? I want to have some fun in college. And I lost sight of what I really wanted to do and wanted to be. And that was a professional athlete. I really wanted that. I still would have loved that opportunity. But I stopped treating myself like a professional. I stopped acting like a professional. I stopped doing the little things every single day. And what's interesting is when you stop doing the compound things, when you stop doing the little things, you don't immediately stop being good at what you were doing.
Right.
You just slowly start to not compete at the same level. You slowly start not to get the little wins that you used to get. And over time, you look at it and it becomes this greater loss that sneaks up on you because you're still the same person. You're not separating yourself from the competition. So when before you're gaining all this ground and everyone's falling behind, all of a sudden they're catching back up and you're coming back down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's going on? This is a lot harder this year.
Yeah.
Maybe I should turn it up again. And so that would probably be my message is trust the fact that doing little daily things is worth it. And don't get distracted by the fun, shiny little objects that will always be there.
Well, if you brought up the little things, can you talk a little bit about how the little things can make big differences, especially with the compounding effect?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I always try to use little targets for everything, for my standards, for my goals, for my compound efforts. Like I said, the 100 words. 100 words doesn't seem like much until you get to the end of the year and it's 36,500.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah.
My last book that I just wrote, it's only 26,000 words. That's a full book.
Yeah.
The first one was a little bit longer. So, it was like 3/4 of that book. But at the end of the day, if you do that every day, every year, every 2 years, you could write a book.
Yeah.
That's only if you do the 100 too. That's the bare minimum.
Right.
For me, another one, I've got a standard that if I set an alarm, I don't negotiate with it. That's a little thing.
Yeah.
but it builds in every day a win.
Yeah.
Because every day I'm waking up when I'm supposed to, how I'm supposed to, and I'm not giving into what my mind's telling me to where, oh, you're tired, dude. You should just hit snooze. Because I still feel that, but
Sure.
I've made it a non-negotiable that if I set an alarm, I'm getting up at that time.
Yep.
I can always take a nap later. I can always find sleep some other time, but that's a win for me. I'm getting up no matter what.
I wish
And
that, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and those little things over time build strength. Those little things over time build character. Those little things over time build wins, and it gets us the results we're looking for.
I don't know if you can do it on the iPhone, but I wish you could turn the snooze alarm off of alarms so it wouldn't give you the
Yeah,
option.
yeah, right.
Because then
That'd
if
be
you do
great
it would train you differently too, right? Like
for
you always,
sure.
oh, 10 more minutes, right? No, it's like
Right.
it's
Oh yeah.
always sleep studies always show that those next 10, 15 minutes are worthless anyway. So you might as well
Oh yeah.
get
Why
your
didn't
butt
you
out of
just
bed.
set? Why didn't you just set your alarm for 10 minutes later? Like that. That's
Yeah.
the part that I don't get. Like we all know how much time we needed in the morning.
Yeah.
Why did you set your alarm for 6:30 when you know you don't have to actually get up till 7 to get to what you need to do on time?
Yeah.
Why waste that 30 minutes with crappy sleep?
Yeah. It's just,
I mean, you
uh,
set it for 7. Maybe you wake up at 6:55 naturally and you feel
yeah.
so refreshed that you're like, man, this is amazing. But instead you ruined it by setting an alarm for 6:30, hitting snooze every 5 minutes until you get to. So basically you had restless, crappy sleep for 30 minutes and you wasted half an hour.
That was my college teammate and roommate. He could like milk the minutes. Like I'd have anxiety watching him try to milk the sleep minutes. I'm like, I'm going to workouts, dude. I hope you make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
and I see my college roommate was the snooze master.
yeah.
It was, but he wouldn't hear his alarm until I said something. Like, Kevin, your alarm has been going off for 5 minutes. You get up and go, like, why did
Man.
you even set that? You're just back in bed. What are you doing?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think too, it's I mean, it's those little follow throughs, right? I said I'm gonna wake up at 5:45. I woke up at 5:45. Right. It's a vote of you can follow through on what you decide to do. And I think that sometimes is when you start to drift off into the snooze world, you also start to drift away from building confidence because you're not really doing what you're telling yourself you're going to do. So how would you be confident in this world if you're not even following through on self? I think that's
Yeah.
sometimes challenging trap.
Yeah. I think there's two things that are really important for developing long-term success. And one is learning how to start because starting is hard. And then learning how to finish and follow through. If you can start and you can finish, you can figure out the middle. The middle is always the part that's the easiest to kind of navigate and to understand, and you grow and you develop and you get better as you go. But a lot of times what happens is we delay starting. Oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. New Year's resolutions just around the corner. I'll get my birthday's coming up. We delay starting things.
Yeah.
But starting is the most vital thing you can do. Even if it's ugly and terrible and you don't know what you're doing, start.
Yep.
Then you figure it out in the middle. And what happens is if you figure it out in the middle and you stay committed to it and it gets hard and you fight through that hard part, because no matter what you choose to pursue, starting sucks. The middle, when it gets hard, sucks. And then you learn to finish, which also sucks. But if you get good at doing those things and you break them into those smaller parts and you learn to start and you learn to finish, you can figure out the rest.